right. So Dr. Malone, we're here Friday, April the 9th, 2020. And it is the full 4th week of the offices working remotely, which we're still doing. It's Good Friday. It's a meaningful day for a lot of Christians out there. Passover was yesterday, which is a meaningful day for a lot of folks in the crowd. And so here we are. Usually a holiday weekend. Usually people have plans to do things with family, Easter egg hunts, those kind of things, hanging out at the really good weather here in this part of the country. But for everybody's benefit this year in the whole country, we'd be better served by not being around people. So it's a challenge, obviously, socially for us to keep distance, especially when there's such a holiday, such an important holiday like Passover or Easter, to not be around people that we care about. So speak a little bit to that. Dr. Fauci spoke to that earlier this afternoon in the press conference that the White House put on. Can you speak to a little bit about that, Dr. Malone, just from a medical standpoint, why it's important, again, to be vigilant in regards to the social distancing and physical distancing that we're doing?
Yeah, and I saw what Dr. Fauci had said, and he still is, I guess, beating the same drum about the distancing is the most important thing. And he's been saying that since day one. And I guess knowing someone in with his status, reminding us of that is, you don't want to have a relapse or a slip up, I guess, and have that second wave that you referred to, I believe, the other night. And I guess they're trying to get people in that mindset of you can enjoy someone's company without being in their company. So as Americans, we've got to come up with a way to, I guess, be more effective with our communication and sharing your emotions with your family members without actually being, very close to them. And so the importance of phone calls, the importance of making the phone call to the family members and all that. And I believe that's what the Surgeon General was talking about today as well. He got rather impassioned about it when he spoke, and it was good to see that, I think.
Yeah. The other thing is concerning to me in the news, I saw it when I was walking down the stairs just now, is that for whatever reason, I guess the county's been putting out this daily report, right? And we've gotten some of the information that we've shared with our viewers from the daily report, or you have looked at that report and given numbers and facts that Escambia County puts out on a daily basis. And then they gave out I guess the last day they did the report was Wednesday of this week. And here we are Friday, which means we skipped a day, and we're skipping 2 days now, I guess. And the county is not releasing a report. And one of the county commissioners was, upset about this, rightfully so, in my opinion, and wants to know why the report's not being released. And, everybody's left to speculate that the last report that came out had bad news for the long-term care facilities. And so my suspicion is everybody's wondering, okay, are they trying to hide bad news? Or are they just trying to keep the same bad news that was there on Wednesday from getting worse or looking worse or whatever? But it never seems to be the right idea to hide things in a situation like this where people need information to survive, or to protect their loved ones. And it doesn't seem to be the right thing to do to hide things at this point. But I guess I could envision some scenarios where it might help the public not to know certain things. If you didn't want to scare the public into a frenzy, for instance, or if you didn't want there to be a rush on the nursing homes to pull out all their relatives because one nursing home has some really bad characteristics. I can imagine that would be the case, but imagine the families that could be prejudiced by the fact that the county's not keeping the information flowing, and they otherwise would have done something to protect their relative or loved one that's in one of these facilities, that they can't do anything now because they didn't get the information in time. So I'm not sure why you would do something for 4 weeks every day and then all of a sudden stop doing it, unless you were
purposely trying to keep information from being public. And somebody needs to come out and say what, generally why they're doing this, so that we're not left to speculate, which is not good in these scenarios.
Yep.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, and as you mentioned, I'm looking at the update. It's like update number 45 was the one that posted today. And so there are updates, but the content is not consistent, I guess, as far as, some of the distribution of where these tests are, where the positive tests are coming from, and as well as like the hospital bed availability and the ventilator availability. So like today, those two numbers were included in there again. They're kind of without any real ordinary update that we hadn't gotten like in a few days. And I was like, hey, there's another update on that. So I guess some measure of consistency would be useful. It's kind of like these people that are pinning their planning as a community and their strategy on watching some of these national numbers. They look at the Johns Hopkins map that everybody's been looking at. If that just stopped updating for 2 days and then updated it a day later.
Well, it's not just that. If it
So
stopped updating after some really bad news came out of it.
Yeah.
And then they stopped updating after that. I'm only making laughter out of this because there's really no other positive reaction to have. And I don't want to be overly negative, but it's comical how bad that looks. So I don't know who's making those decisions, but it's not a very bright one. In any event, what scientific medical information do you have for us today? Unlike news channels, whatever side you're on, we're not about giving people news that they can read. We're about giving people scientific medical information backed up by journals like the New England Journal of Medicine, which you referred to 10 times this week. What information do you have for the local community and regarding how to keep them safe from this virus and how best to help them and their families?
And I guess some of it's also understanding it. I guess knowledge is power. And so it's kind of what I think about when I'm trying to find some of these useful, informative articles. So I kind of came up with a theme today, and the first one's illustrations, the next one's imaging, and the last one's your eyes. So everything to do with seeing and grabbing onto something visually. So what we have here.
Don't remind me to talk about hair dryer at the end of this. Go ahead.
Okay. The first one I was going to show, and so there's 2 articles to this, and we're going to link them as we always do. But this is an illustrated primer on COVID therapy. And this is a fantastic article that's been written, and it's reliable. It's sourced out very well. And we won't go through the whole thing today, but what I'm going to show you is what catches my eye is this.
First of all, this is Pulmonary Critical Care Medicine Journal. Is that what this is?
It's a website that a gentleman does. Yeah, he calls it the Pulmonary CCM. It's well sourced. It's everything he links is usually peer reviewed, and when it's not, it's then he puts the caveat on there like this wasn't peer reviewed.
The funny thing was, I thought you were getting ready to get in some medical minutia, and then I saw a cartoon, so I'm a little encouraged by the fact that we all of this.
That's why I wanted to share this with everybody.
Okay, so you need this.
So you can avoid the minutia, but it's there if you want to read it. There's a paragraph basically for each drug class. And so what you're looking at here is the blue orb at the bottom is the human cell, and then the gray globs covered in red the little spiky things, that's the corona, the crown. That is the coronavirus. And so there's different ways like this. These are all the proposed mechanisms that are being investigated now and hopeful for treatment. So you see convalescent plasma, there are some alligators and that's kind of what that's what
they just attack the virus.
The virus. Yeah. But so the idea of convalescent plasma would be to basically eat up the virus before it even gets into your cells.
Okay.
And then you see steroids there kind of flying a banner in the vicinity, and that can keep the inflammation, which is all on the right side of the picture, that INF, the TNF alpha, the IL-6, those are all inflammatory cytokines. That's that cytokine storm we were talking about.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the steroids can help kind of blunt that as well. You see, there's a little blue guy down there saying "Stop fighting." That's
The hydroxychloroquine.
so it's how many times do you see him on this picture? 3 times. So the thought is that the hydroxychloroquine has got multiple mechanisms of intervening in the process.
So
one of them is to stop.
It can keep the steroids from the storm from happening, according to this, right?
It can help blunt that storm, and
Okay.
then
And then what
it
else
can
is
also
that little guy doing?
it's inside the cell. You see that it's to blocking the virus from getting in, those 2 yellow gates. So it's blocking it from getting in, and then also it's stopping the party on the inside when it says, "Hey, look, it's sexy time, more friends," and they're basically trying to replicate. The idea is that
Oh.
it can stop that it can stop that replication. So he's saying no.
Oh.
So there's other drugs on
Oh.
here. You see the antivirals on there, the lopinavir and the ritonavir.
Yeah.
So that's another drug that you would use that would stop the replication of the RNA. That's what an antiviral mechanism
All right.
generally
So
is.
if I'm a doctor and I got somebody in critical condition in the ICU on a ventilator, I'm pumping them with all these drugs. Why would you not just do that? I'd give them the hydroxychloroquine. I'd give them the ritonavir, the lopinavir, and the whatever this other one is. Why wouldn't you do all that?
Well,
And the plasma, yeah.
well, and many facilities are doing that. And so if you recall, about 3 days ago, we had a Yale protocol on here, and you're the first one. You said, "Oh, look at hydroxychloroquine's on there," and then you also said, "And what's this?" And I said, "That's an antiviral." And so they are doing that. But it's this is not the therapy that you give someone who has.
So why is
like
Dr. Fauci not throwing this on the screen behind him at the press conference? This would help the general public a lot better than just getting up there talking about it. Maybe they like to keep people stupid. I don't know, because I need something like this.
And that's why I caught my attention. So I don't want. We'll link it on there, but then there's another cartoon on here about.
What's this one?
You've been hearing about the ACE inhibitor. Been hearing about how they thought, oh, these ARB drugs, these antihypertensives, are they going to be good or bad? We don't know what they're doing. So the idea is that, without having to explain the whole chart here, is that it's things that can downregulate the edema that happens in the lungs. See that acute lung injury? There's some lungs that are there that look like they're injured. It can have an impact on that in a good direction, so you don't get that acute lung injury. And then it can also change the way that the cells are receptive or not to the virus. So that little coronavirus is trying to get on there, and it's getting blocked. So that's one. And then I'll show you the last other one here is on a different. They have 2 articles in there, but this one.
Is this guy a teacher? He must be a teacher.
Yeah. So here's your cytokine storm.
Oh wow.
I like this. So everything up in that cloud are all the markers of how they're going to try and anticipate how bad the storm is going to be. So you're a meteorologist and you're looking at how thick and dark that cloud is. And so all those are lab values, and they all have a score. And that's how these physicians in these facilities are using, they're calling it the H score. And they're adding these up based on the lab values. So if, suppressed, you have an 18 right there. The higher the score, the worse. So you don't want a high score. Okay. So
basically the healthier you are, the less stormy you're going to be.
Exactly. That cloud is going to.
That's why sick people don't do well in this disease, because they're set up for the storm, a worse storm.
Yeah, that's one part of it, correct. And so they've got all the things on there, but it kind of tells you all the components of how the anticipation of the cytokine storm is being approached. So it's not just like you walk in the door and they take your temperature and they say, yeah, you're going to get it. No, there's blood involved, and there's historical factors such as, are they immunocompromised in any way? There's examination findings that they look at. That's like the size of the liver. So there's more to it than just that. And that's, again, this thing we looked at from Yale the other day was there was a whole listing of all these labs that they were pulling up, and it was part of trying to anticipate or forecast how bad the storm is going to be in each individual and what to do best to get them through it. So this is in part number 2 of the illustrated review that they had available, and I encourage people to flip through it. Some of the paragraphs are a little bit dense, but if you couple it with these, I guess, cartoons, as you then it makes it a little easier to understand. And like you said, most people don't understand what the antiretrovirals
Yeah,
are doing, what the hydrochloroquine is
the
doing.
word I like to use is consumable. I can
Yeah.
consume that information with that
Yeah.
graph.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
very good. That's you hit it out of the park today, Dr. Malone. That was a good one. All right, what else you got for us?
so this was interesting to me. So we're Americans, and you go to the hospital and you say, I want the gold standard. I want the test. Give me the CAT scan. Give me the MRI. And
Right.
that's always what it is. And so the Chinese researcher, based on his data on everything that happened in China, said that
Which is very skeptical already, but go ahead.
Yeah, it said that they could predict, they could diagnose COVID just with a CT scan without
Even in
sticking
asymptomatic patients.
So that's what they said. They said that they grabbed asymptomatic patients and they did CAT scans on them, and they were able to, with a high degree of sensitivity, pick up the COVID infections while their RNA test, the nasal swab, was still cooking in the lab.
Wow.
And then the idea was, do we have to, which modality do we use when someone comes in? Do we say just put them in the scanner? So all of a sudden there was this big movement of like, yeah, like we're Americans, like we're just going to crank the scanners up, man. They're faster. We don't have to wait a week for an RNA test. They get sent to a state lab anywhere. That's what I'd want, right? So
why is nobody talking about that? Because I guess they're very skeptical because it came from China. Number one. Number two. Okay.
So here's the American College of Radiology. And so they did some more research on it, and they say that CT scan should not be used as a line screen for COVID. And it's for symptomatic, sick, hospitalized people. And then they get into the functional limitations, meaning every time you do a CAT scan on one of these people, you have to clean the entire device. You have to circulate the air in the room. And then you're also putting all these technicians at risk. CT scan is not something that the patient does to themselves. This is something that requires transport to the CAT scan to the radiology department.
It's a room.
And there's technicians in there. There's multiple people doing this. If you are sick, then you got a nurse in there with you as well. You might be on oxygen, a number of things. So the fact that you had to be transported from your patient room to get this test, it better be worth it. So that's kind of what the ACR is saying. No. It sounds good when you think about it in the absence of any other ability to test, but in a hospital setting in the United States, you should depend upon the lab test and treat otherwise, meaning it work backwards. So if it looks like COVID and everything sounds like COVID, and you're just waiting for that lab test to come back, just start treating the COVID.
Right.
And so that's what they did. And so then the ACR then linked another international organization as their backing to say, yeah, this is, we're credible here. Wrong one. They're saying, we're credible, and they got this multinational, look at all these people that are signed on to this. And it's right here. Three things right there.
So they basically shot down the Chinese thing, shot it down.
Well, yes, yeah, but the third point on here is the one that is still relevant. So if you don't have the ability to do the PCR testing, you're in. There are some medically underserved parts of this country that don't have the labs that are going to be able to get that done, but they have a CAT scanner. So that's where they'd say, run the CAT scanner. Let's do it. It's not our first choice, but that's your only choice. So you can maybe diagnose this CAT scanner and an appropriately trained radiologist who knows what
I guess the thing that
infection
aggravates
looks
me
like.
Is that we need a rapid test, period. We need a test that's able to, the 5-minute test I've been talking about, that should be all over the country right now. And if there's a problem getting it all over the country, we need to figure out why. If it's not reliable, we need to figure out why. We need testing. That's what I've been saying since the beginning of this. We really can't go back and assimilate in any fashion, constructive fashion, unless there's some kind of test that we can rely on that people can either use on their own or have at their doctor's office ready to go. I mean, it's just, we're going to have a test. Everything we talk about comes back to testing. And I know that nobody likes to talk about it because it becomes a political issue, but it's really not. It's really just a medical scientific fact. We need to have tests.
It's practical. It's a practical issue, not a political issue, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
So,
All right. So what else do you have for us today?
The last thing is this. It's popped up in the news a few times, and I've had a couple of people ask me about it. Is what's up with this red eyes thing I'm seeing? Can you diagnose it with red eyes?
I hope not.
Or patient.
I've got, if that's the case.
Yeah. So this is again an observational study where they looked at different patients, and it said 1/3 of patients with the COVID-19 had ocular abnormalities, meaning bloodshot eyes or like some conjunctivitis,
Pink eye.
things like that. Yeah. Okay. So it's something that is associated with it, though. It's not like, oh, you got red eyes, you have COVID. There's multiple reasons why you could have red eyes.
Like coughing a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Or,
Mhm.
or crying because we're still locked down here. But the important thing that I saw in here was the last sentence. The COVID it's in the tears, but it's the tears, like it's not like getting sneezed on, or like in the you know what I mean, like, so it's on the coating of the eye. I said tears, I guess, coating the eye. So this is the chart to look at right here. So it shows you on the left those are all the ocular manifestations, red eye, conjunctivitis, and all that, and all of them basically had positive nasal swabs. And then they only had 2 where when they swabbed their eyeball, that actually had on the coating of the eyeball.
And that would have been
even though it's
the conjunctivitis, and what's the other one there?
Chemosis and conjunctival hyperemia. So,
Okay.
and secretions. But there's plenty of those other people that had the same findings and had negative studies. So point being is you can still transmit this from your eyeball, and I guess catch it through your eyeball. So, but it's relatively low. So I don't think people need to go walking around wearing goggles next.
You're gonna have to be on top of somebody for that to happen, right?
Yeah. So don't go running and buy goggles right now. Although medical personnel, you'll see they are wearing the 3D face covers and all that are being printed on those 3D printers. So anyhow, I guess I just want to show you that there is an association. It's not pathognomonic, and when I say that, it's not you have red eyes, you have COVID. It's you have red eyes. If you have other symptoms, you might have COVID. That's kind of how you have to approach it. And also it's not I don't have red eyes, therefore I don't have COVID. It doesn't work that way.
No,
so if you don't have red eyes, but you feel sick, you still need to entertain the possibility you might have the virus.
I have ophthalmologists in the family, and they were telling me earlier this week, they know that I wear contacts in addition to glasses, and the contacts, if you fumble with them and you have it on your fingers, you can transmit the virus from your fingers, I guess, theoretically, to the contact and then to your eye. So, or directly, you're touching your eye with your finger a lot of times when you're fumbling with your contact. So if your hands aren't clean, you have the virus on them, you can transmit the virus to yourself that way. Anyway, so be careful, wash your hands before you do that with the contacts. Now, in regards to us coming back over the weekend, the only way I see that happening, like I said, last weekend, the weekend before that, was if something major happened. Now, if the county does get to the point where they do release something and it is significant, I can see a thing where we would maybe get back online over the weekend. If there's nothing significant that happens over the weekend locally, we'll probably just wait until Monday for the next update. But you can find us on the web at zarzaurlaw.com. Of course, you can call us at 855-HIRE-JOE. If you have questions for Dr. Malone or myself, you can also comment under this video. We'll get back to you. Y'all stay safe, stay apart, at least for until Dr. Fauci says not to. And then we'll see y'all next Monday, okay? Happy Easter, happy Passover, whatever else. Happy non-holiday if you're one of those. Okay? Y'all take care.
Bye now.